Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant. Today we are at the next topic, that is a game study, and we are going to discuss Praggnanandhaa's recent win over Magnus Carlsen, first time in the classical format. Generally I don't cover the latest games by grandmasters because it has lot of theoretical details which are not required for normal rated players. But this game not only is extension of classic games, but this topic I have covered in detail and it happens to be a very important topic as well. It's about a knight outpost on d5, and we see real contemporary chess, modern chess, which has evolved over many such games. So when I went through this game, as I went through the game, I could remember at least 4 or 5 games where the outpost was exploited by a knight on d5, and I could remember some of the games. Like you can see my lesson 430, there you will see similar pattern. There is a game by Smyslov which I could recollect, and definitely see masters must be knowing many more such games where they can recollect during the game, and their preparation revolves around that. So let's not do much discussion and see how Praggnanandhaa managed to score his win over Carlsen. e4 c5, it's a Sicilian Paulsen game. Knight f3, e6, d4, c takes d4 and d4. The open Sicilian, black goes a6. This is the way to play in this line. Queen wants to come to c7 without being hit by nb5. White goes bd3. The plan bd3 castle is very common in these lines. White doesn't want to do long castle because of black's presence on the queen side. Carlsen goes qc7, castle, knight f6, and here queen e2. White is not committing the move nc3 because he may use the move c4 later on. Bishop c5 is often made by knight b3, and then knight c3 is used. Black goes d6. Now from Paulsen he is entering a Scavengel kind of setup, but see, white has already castled short. White goes c4 and Carlsen goes nd7. The knight is eyeing the e5 square and wants to pressurize c4. Queen e2 is already there with bishop on d3. So white just goes knight c3, knight e5, and see, many people would like to save this bishop, but even bc2 may allow the move qc4. White wants to use f4. It must be noted that this bishop on d3 is bad, so future exchange of nd3, qd3 will leave black with one of the bad bishops, either c8 or f8, which we will soon see. Instant f4 can allow the move ng4 also. So white goes h3, black goes b6, f4, and now see knight d3, qd3. Both players must have anticipated this position, bb7, and here we can make out that Pragg must be very well prepared. He played the move f5. See, what white wants is black should play e5, and as soon as there comes e5, the square d5 will fall in white's hand. Knight would go to c2. This maneuver is very common in Sicilian Sevashnikov also. The knight goes to e3 and one knight jumps to d5. When taken, finally a piece lands on d5 and the pawn on d6 remains weak. For instance, see, rook c8, knight e3, c4 is covered, and soon there will be knight coming to d5. If white gets the chance, he would do bg5 first and then get ne3. That is why perhaps black should have played this move order, e5, nc2, rook c8 here itself. Carlsen protects the pawn on e6 with qd7 without committing e5, but unfortunately what happens is he has to play the move e5 soon, so the tempo is lost with the move qd7. White goes bg5. This reminds me of the Smyslov game, very similar one, where after e5 Smyslov went bg5, bf6 and planted his knight to d5. b7 and rad1. See white's maneuvering here. White wants to pressurize the d5. That is what he does. After rook c8 goes with the very strong queen e2, and this is where black is compelled to play e5. The point is that right now, see, after fe, white is threatening the dangerous e5, and after d takes e5 you can make out knight f5, this discovered attack, and see knight g7, knight e7, and what is happening over here, take on f6, queen h5 check. White is almost winning, so this cannot be allowed. So this forces black to play e5. But now comes bishop f6, bishop takes f6 and now knight c2. Very similar to the previous line, but see, now knight on e3 is not blocking the bishop on c1, so white's position is now clearly better. White can almost build the pressure at his own pace. Carlsen played qc6 over here, but I think after the move bishop g5 trying to stop ne3, firstly white can still consider the move ne3, be3, queen e3, rook c4, qb6, but white can play the move f6, which I find very strong, because after bishop f6 the sacrifice, see, rook f6, g takes f6, maybe knight b4 stopping qc6, and the knight lands on d5. This position, see, is too dominating. Even the move knight e3, the knight can come to f5, queen h5, and maybe this position is losing. See, after knight f5, d6 is also going. So no one would want this kind of position. Hence the bishop cannot leave the f6 square. So qc6 putting pressure on c4, knight e3, bishop g5. Now f6 can be met by b3 check. So king h1, bishop takes e3, queen takes e3. So black's plan has been somewhat successful. At least one of the knight is exchanged. But still we see the knight jumping to d5 now. It's very risky to take qc4. We can note that there is the very strong qb6 over there. And also after qc4, the move f6 first. As we discussed in the previous line, black will have to play g6. So this makes the task very difficult. In fact, I was considering the move rook f2, because rook cannot move to d6 because f1 hangs, but even the move qb6 looks great. So this looks like an almost winning position for white. So black goes f6, preventing white's f6. Now white simply goes b3, protecting the c4 pawn. There is a small trap here. If castle, then knight d5, winning on the spot, threatening qb6 and knight e7 check both. Black goes b5, knight d5 and queen c5. Black wants to trade the queens, but white is not interested, and even black wants to play the move bd5. Now white plays the very strong queen f3. White utilizes small tactical points to realize his positional advantage. This is again a very common theme in these kind of situations. B takes c4, black accepts the challenge, queen h5 check, g6 is met by fg6, king f8 forced, and here comes the very strong rook f3. Now the rook is turning to the queen side, and the rook will penetrate when we will see that h8 rook will not be available in the game. After c takes b3, there is the very strong rook c3, queen a5 almost forced, qb5 allows rook b3, and here there are several options. One is just the move rook b3, when after bd5 ed, see, rook cannot take on d5 because queen e1 check was there, but rook b7 comes. But after rook b3 also that position is very strong. Even white has rook c8, bc8, rook c1. This is perhaps even stronger. The point is that no time for ba2 because of rook c8, and secondly after bb7 also rook c7, and white wins. Black tries bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, queen b6, b takes c4, rook takes c4, and as per the plan, rook b3. Once the rooks are traded, then the other rook will try to occupy the b5. So Carlsen goes rook b4, and now comes rook d b3. Another good move. Rook takes b3, rook b3. White was already threatening rook b4, qb4, rook b3, queen c7, and here comes typical maneuvering. When I was seeing this game, I already knew that at some point white will transfer his queen to the queen side, and here comes qd1. And the point is, see, the rook and queen will infiltrate. The threat is qb1 now. Black tries g6, qb1, qc5, setting a small trap now. If rook b8, kg7, qb7, kh6, rook cannot be taken because qc1 check, kh2, qf4 check, and it's draw by repetition. So white goes rook b7, cutting off the king now. G takes f5, king h2. This time the queen is ready to come to b3 without fearing qc1 check. So qb3 is a major threat now. If qc4, then the queen can infiltrate from the square b6. So black tries rook g8, and here white can win with rook b8 also, but white simply goes rook h7. It's time to resign. There are several threats. Main one being qb8 checkmate, and rook g7 also fails to qb8, king f7, qb7 check. After the move qc8 also, white has several ways. He can consider the move qb3, when after rook g7, rook h8 check, the queen is lost. So Carlsen chooses to resign over here. So indeed an historic result we can say, but definitely now there are many youngsters who are close to beating Carlsen. They are really getting stronger day by day. So I hope you must have liked this lesson. Do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for your time.